The Ralcath roared so loud the lanterns rattled. Merchants dove behind stalls. Vendors slammed shutters. A guard fainted before reaching the alarm. But one figure didn't move. Marcus Hale, backpack half unzipped, chewing gum, simply blinked and said, "Aw, who scared you, big guy?" The market went silent, and the apex predator stepped toward him. 5 minutes earlier, Keth Rollo's grand market had been a joyful mess of chaos. Drifting scent vapors and curling neon mist wove between row after row of merchant stalls, each shouting over the next in dozens of languages. Glowing signs flickered with motion ads for root distillates, scaled spices, sun-mined crystals, and gravity flux trinkets. Marcus strolled with a relaxed gait, eyes darting between shimmering fabrics and bubbling food vats. A few items caught his curiosity, namely a self-heating cup of broth that fizzed every time he slurped it. But mostly, he was there to watch. The place buzzed like an urban beehive. It reminded him of street fairs back home in San Diego, if those fairs had three-headed fish hawkers and ceiling-crawling vendors selling live scarves. He adjusted his backpack, taking mental notes for his travel logs. Kethralo was a trade hub, and the plaza reflected it, rough stone tiles underfoot, banners fluttering from beam to beam, and hundreds of beings moving like synchronized chaos. Colors clashed, voices tangled, and something resembling an inflatable crocodile launched itself from a stall to a child's delight. He grinned. Then the lights flickered red. The shift was subtle, but immediate. Conversations dropped to murmurs. Shouts died to whispers. Every merchant within Marcus's line of sight became still, eyes shifting toward the center of the plaza. Glowing lanterns dimmed slightly. Somewhere off to his right, a soft mechanical whir rose the guild's localized alarm burst. Marcus looked up. Most shoppers didn't wait to ask questions. A family of six-legged pilgrims scattered, folding their arms inward with clicks of alarm. Vendors snatched fragile goods off their counters. A tall reptilian female cursed in what Marcus assumed was profanity and rolled down her security mesh with impressive speed. Then the chains began to rattle. Not small chains, not jewelry or booth decorations. These were thick, segmented bindings that dragged across stone and sparked with each movement. Marcus turned in time to see the creature step into view. The Ralcath. Towering and furred, its back bristled with rigid, tufted spikes that flared when it walked. Its claws were the size of gardening shears. Each footstep thudded like dropped steel beams, and its eyes glowed faintly orange in the dimmed lantern light. Muscles flexed under dark fur, and its fangs gleamed with saliva. Marcus stood frozen, not from fear, but confusion. It looked startled. The creature swung its head, snorting hard. Its chains tugged behind it, anchored to a transport platform now listing to one side, support legs bent like paper straws. Evidently, the Ralcath had broken free. An accident? A malfunction? Someone screamed. Not a shriek, more like a war cry of panic. Then the crowd bolted. Aliens shouted in fragmented translation bursts that hit Marcus's earpiece like static-riddled warnings. Evacuate, threat square, beast move, run danger area, apex untethered. The translator glitched mid-panic, spitting words like dice. He frowned. Wait, are they yelling at me? He squinted. No, they weren't even looking his way. Most had already scattered behind cover, ducked under carts, or sprinted toward the access tunnels. One poor vendor had tried to push a floating crate and tripped into her own display, scattering jars of bioluminescent kelp everywhere. That's when the Ralcath snapped. With a roar that felt like a jet engine inside a steel pipe, the beast lunged at a nearby cart stacked with crates of some red spiny fruit. Its jaws crunched through wood and composite alloy like it was paper, sending splinters and juice flying. Fruit rolled in all directions. The merchant, a scaled biped with enormous goggles, dove behind a stall screaming in 3 languages. Marcus dropped the cup of fizz broth. Whoa! He had no idea what he was supposed to do. Run? Hide? Everyone else seemed to have chosen those options. But the creature didn't seem rabid. It wasn't bloodthirsty or berserking, it looked. Agitated, confused, maybe even scared. And Marcus had seen this before. Not exactly this, obviously. He wasn't in the habit of casually strolling past weaponized zoo monsters. But he'd worked with rescue dogs back on Earth, the kind pulled from illegal breeders or abandoned near highways. Big, growling dogs that didn't trust anyone. You didn't yell, You didn't charge. You lowered your center, soft tone, no sudden movements. The creature turned toward him, breath steaming from its nose. Its paw crushed a broken cartwheel with ease. Marcus exhaled through his nose, took one step forward, and crouched slightly. "Easy," he said, lowering his posture, one hand open and low. "You're not mad, are you? Just scared. I get it." Gasps rang out from behind the barricades. Some aliens peeked over crates, others filmed with handheld prisms, one whispering, "It's approaching him. It's by the twin moons. It's walking toward him." The Ralcath loomed. It paused 2 meters away, nostrils flaring, hackles raised. Marcus didn't move. He met the creature's gaze and kept his voice low. "You don't really want to break things, right? You're just spooked." A growl built in its throat, thunderous and deep. The ground trembled slightly. He slowly extended his hand. "Mirror, big guy." The growl softened. The creature's ears, if those ridged tufts could be called, that tilted forward. Its massive head tilted slightly, sniffing. Then, shockingly, its entire posture shifted. The shoulders dipped. The claws retracted slightly. The fur along its back eased from rigid to relaxed. And then, impossibly, it stepped forward and rested its enormous head in Marcus's palm. The moment the contact happened, silence blanketed the plaza. No roars, no alarms. Just the low, rhythmic purring that rumbled through the tiles like a subwoofer under the floor. Marcus blinked. "Well, I'll be—" He scratched gently under the jaw, feeling the coarse fur and the heat of breath. The beast leaned into it, letting out a sound that could only be described as delighted thunder. From behind a column, a guild enforcer whispered into a comm. "It's calm. Not sedated. No wounds. The human is petting it." Another replied, "Do we need to neutralize the human?" "Negative. He's neutralizing it." Marcus grinned as he scratched with both hands now, finding a spot under the chin that made the creature vibrate with joy. He laughed softly. "Soft fur, huh? Bet nobody tells you that." He glanced up and finally noticed dozens of stunned faces peeking from safety, confused, amazed, and slightly horrified. "Is this, not allowed?" he asked. The Ralcath made a snorting huff and pressed closer, forcing Marcus to backpedal slightly to avoid being smothered. A nearby vendor fainted. Within 2 minutes, the plaza began to breathe again. Merchants emerged cautiously. A few brave ones kept filming. Guild enforcers held stun launchers, but didn't fire. The Ralcath remained next to Marcus like a loyal guardian, occasionally nudging him with its snout to demand more scratches. He obliged. "I guess you were just lonely." The creature made a pleased and followed as Marcus wandered slowly back toward the market's main strip. Shutters slammed shut in his path. Aliens scrambled to avoid the beast's enormous paws. Some stood in place, not out of fear, but disbelief. Marcus paused beside a vending unit. "Can I still get my soup?" Or the machine whirred. Then, after a beep, it ejected a canister labeled "cautious broth." He chuckled. "That's more like it." The Ralcath sat beside him, absolutely content. High above, in the guild's central tower, 3 officials stared at the live footage in silence. Finally, one said, "Draft a regulation. Effective immediately. Title it, Human Exception Protocol, High-Risk Creature Interaction." Another nodded. "Do we promote him? Arrest him? Send a gift basket?" The first replied, "Just keep him scratching that thing's chin. That's all I care about." Marcus took another sip from the canister and patted the enormous beast's flank. "You're a big ol' kitty, huh?" The Ralcath purred, and the galaxy quietly panicked. It took a full hour before the market reopened. Not officially, no klaxons announced the end of the emergency, and no guild enforcer made a declaration, but slowly, tentatively, shutters creaked back up. Cautious faces peeked through reinforced slats. Hover carts re-emerged from alleys like wary crustaceans. The air was still thick with smoke scent and ozone, but the edge of terror had faded. And in the middle of the plaza, Marcus Hale was sitting on the floor, legs crossed, back against a fruit crate, sipping warm broth while a Ralcath the size of a cargo hauler used his lap as a chin rest. Somewhere, a very brave child took a picture. Guild Enforcer Aln, whose actual title was Vice Sentinel for Emergency Protocol Harmonization, stood nearby, arms crossed behind his broad green back, watching the scene with a mixture of awe and indigestion. He tapped the side of his translator. Confirm again. No implants. No pheromone manipulation. No sonic emitters. A tech beside him flicked through readings on a floating prism. Confirmed, Vice Sentinel. Just a baseline human, possibly dehydrated. Slight deficiency in niacin. All narrowed his eyes. What's that he's doing now? Scratching behind the ear tufts. The Ralcath made a pleased wuffling noise and stretched, one of its rear legs kicking out involuntarily, knocking over a stall that sold antique thermal lenses. Aln didn't flinch. Update regulation draft. Include. Ear tuft scratching consideration. We'll wordsmith later. He turned and walked toward the guild tower, tail lashing once behind him. Marcus wasn't thinking about politics, or regulations, or safety procedures being rewritten in real time. He was thinking about how shockingly soft the Ralcath's fur was around the neck ridge, like a mix between alpaca wool and shag carpet. He made a mental note to see if anyone had tried spinning it into fabric. Surely someone had. If not, well, maybe there was a business opportunity there. He looked up at the towering creature above him. So, what's your name, buddy? The Ralcath blinked slowly, orange eyes half-lidded. No response. Right. I'll call you Marmalade. More blinking. Marmalade the market beast. The creature's tail thumped once against the stone tiles. That sealed it. Across the plaza, chaos continued behind calm faces. Vendors who had been ready to evacuate their entire lives were now whispering nervously in their native tongues. She let him touch her, Fenric, the Ralcath, her head in his hand. What if he's bonded to it, like a neuropack? No, he just walked up and like some idiot on a nature preserve. My cousin's mate says humans have pheromones that affect apex predators. Makes them think you're a cub. That's not pheromones. That's madness. Maybe it's some kind of dominance pheromone, like Terran mushrooms or venom toads. Dominance? He was scratching her chin, not wrestling her. Then it's magic. Or very stupid luck. The debates spread like mold in a warm tunnel. Even the food vendors began drawing speculative diagrams with sauce packets. Inside the guild tower, a high-level meeting began with no formal schedule, no agenda, and no chairs, just a lot of very tall, very concerned beings pacing in overlapping circles. He's a civilian, one argued. We can't just detain him. That'll spark diplomatic inquiries. Do we want more humans coming here? Asked another. What if they all try this? A third snapped. Do you want to explain to the insurance underwriters how we lost 3 supply bridges to a purring incident? Let's focus, rumbled Aln, stepping into the middle. We're writing the human exception protocol. Section 1 is clear. No sudden aggression toward humans during active beast interaction. Section 2? Someone asked. Handling. No unauthorized attempts to remove a bonded human from proximity. They are effectively an apex whisperer. But that's not a thing. It is now. Aln sighed. Look, the creature is calm. Our infrastructure is intact. The guild's public image just pivoted from fearsome security to charming curiosity. Let's not ruin this by overreacting. Silence. Then someone added, should we offer him a job? Marcus had no idea his resume was being edited in real time. He was now wandering through the side streets of Kethralo, half-finished broth in hand, backpack slung over one shoulder. Marmalade followed with heavy, echoing steps, occasionally sniffing at stalls or thumping her tail into support pillars. Wherever they walked, space was made. Stalls shuttered, alleys cleared. A trio of musicians dropped their flutes and simply sprinted into the canal system. Marcus tilted his head at one of the vendors, still watching from behind a stack of frozen eel trays. Hey, he called, is there a repair booth around here? My comlink got bent when she sat on me. The vendor blinked, then vanished behind a slamming door. Cool, I'll figure it out. He turned left. Marmalade followed. Her claws clinked against the stone. He didn't notice the small troop of enforcers shadowing them from rooftops, or the half-dozen hidden cameras now hovering just out of frame, transmitting to several systems that hadn't cared about the Kethralo Bazaar in decades. Somewhere on the Harthian moon, an advertising agency rewrote its campaign pitch to feature unexpected species bonding. On the colony of Vel Oric, a biology professor began drafting a paper with the tentative title, human tactility, and nonverbal apex interaction, a threat or an evolutionary glitch. And in a minor diplomatic outpost on Earth, an intern panicked and spilled coffee across a folder labeled Key Thralo, Low-Risk Trade Zone. It wasn't until Marcus sat down again, this time on a bench near a garden fountain, that the first envoy approached. The creature was slender, six-limbed, wrapped in layered glass garments that shimmered like liquid. It approached without fear, but with a very deliberate slowness. "I greet you in trade neutrality," it said, voice melodic. "I represent the Merchant Guild's Advisory Council." Marcus gave a little wave. "Hey," the envoy hesitated. "You are aware the Ralcath is bonded to you now? Is that what this is?" Marcus glanced at Marmalade, who was now dozing with her chin resting on a tree stump that snapped under her weight. "I just thought she liked chin scratches." The envoy paused, choosing words carefully. "She appears calmed by you. She has not reacted with hostility to your proximity. This is unprecedented." "Right. She's sweet once you get past the teeth. You understand she could have eviscerated half the market if you'd approached improperly." Marcus nodded. "Yeah, I figured. And yet you walked directly into her path." He shrugged. "Didn't seem like she wanted to hurt anyone. Just scared. Cornered animals do dumb stuff. Gotta show 'em they're safe." The envoy tilted its head. "You are very human. Thanks. We wish to offer you honorary behavioral liaison status, with hazard pay and lunch." Marcus blinked. "All that for petting a big angry cat?" The envoy replied, "Yes." 3 hours later, a new sign appeared at the market's main entrance. "Notice. Per Human Exception Protocol Section 1(2)(b). If the Ralcath is actively purring, do not approach unless human companion Marcus Hale is present. Do not attempt to intervene. You are not Marcus Hale." As the suns dipped below Keth Rallo's mist-choked skyline, Marcus lay back against Marmalade's sleeping form, watching the lanterns sway in the warm breeze. He was sun-dappled, exhausted, and oddly content. From the rooftops, the enforcers were still watching. From the towers, the guild was still drafting policy. And from nearby shadows, a handful of alien scholars, traders, and former beast tamers scribbled notes about chin scratches, human calm, and the unsettling possibility that Earth's strangest species was not its predators but its people. Marmalade snored. Marcus closed his eyes. Tomorrow, the market would resume, and the galaxy would still be confused. It began with a headline, not from a major news chain or academic bulletin, but from a fringe travel blog popular among station drifters and long-haul freighter crews. The article's title was simple: "Apex Beast Becomes Market Lapdog Human Involved." Underneath, a grainy still frame showed Marcus Hale scratching Marmalade's chin while fruit vendors watched in stunned silence. The caption read, "The Ralcath of Keth Ralo purrs like a thunder blanket. No casualties. One flattened bench. Several fainted merchants. The human is fine. He thinks she likes belly rubs." The article blew up in less than a day. Within 48 hours, major trade networks had picked it up. In 72, it became the subject of at least 4 public debates on cultural diplomacy forums. By the end of the week, Earth's Department of Interstellar Relations issued a formal statement clarifying that cuddling apex fauna is not an officially recommended protocol. That didn't stop anything. On the second week after the incident, Marcus found himself sitting at a folding table made of high-polish resin, surrounded by 5 members of the Merchant Guild's Advisory Council. "Let me get this straight," he said, arms crossed loosely. "You want me to do what now?" Alm, who now held the somewhat improvised title of Apex Incident Coordinator, cleared his throat and gestured to a floating display. "The Council proposes a short-term cultural outreach program. You and the Ralcath, Marmalade, would visit high-density trade hubs under guild supervision, demonstrate coexistence, ease fears. You want me to go on tour? And it. In this regions, we prefer ambassadorial liaison circuit, with a 60-ton apex predator who still thinks my left boot is a chew toy. She has been quite restrained." Marcus glanced down at his boot. It was, in fact, still damp from an enthusiastic nibble during lunch. The 5th council member, a wiry creature with shimmering eyes and 12 thin fingers, leaned forward eagerly. Other species are now reporting behavioral anomalies near humans. A barn-fed gorak in the Kifa tunnels allowed a human researcher to inspect its molting plates without incident. A juvenile Merrick lizard fell asleep on a human's shoulder in quarantine. Aln added, "There's talk of an emerging xenobehavioral phenomenon, possibly a biological quirk, possibly a psychological projection. Either way, the guild believes showcasing the calm is better than denying it exists." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You're telling me apex monsters are suddenly into humans now?" "We are suggesting," said Aln carefully, "that there is an interaction pattern not yet understood, and that you, for better or worse, are now the face of it." Marcus groaned. "Does this at least come with food vouchers?" By the time Marcus returned to his usual seat near the garden fountain, Marmalade was curled into a lazy half-circle beneath a shade lattice. Her breathing was slow and even, but one eye opened the moment his boots hit the tile. "Hey, girl." She shifted slightly, lifting her head just enough to let him slide in beside her. A warm exhale blew his hair sideways. He scratched under her jaw, watching nearby vendors pretend they weren't staring. "Guess we're famous now." She huffed, then nestled closer. In the distance, a small crowd had gathered: tourists, students, a few scholars. Some carried sketch pads. One waved timidly when Marcus looked up. He waved back. A young child, long-limbed, with insectile joints and a hopeful grin, tiptoed forward and held out a small fruit wrapped in paper. Marcus took it, gave the kid a thumbs up, and unwrapped it slowly. "Looks like a bruised peach," he murmured. "Smells like mint and ozone." Marmalade lifted her head, nostrils twitching. Marcus held it out to her. "You want this?" She sniffed it once, then gently closed her jaws around it and leaned back, chewing with ponderous delight. From the crowd came a round of scattered applause. The guild's new human exception tent was a haphazard thing at first, just a canopy and some directional signs, but it grew quickly. Within days, it had a translator station, a question box, and a merchant stand selling "I Survived the Purr" t-shirts in 17 sizes. Marcus didn't mind. The pay was decent, the food was free, Marmalade seemed content. But the weird started catching up fast. 3 weeks after the incident, a delegation from the Varnock matriarchate arrived. The Varnock were famously territorial, serpentine bipeds with sharp frills and zero tolerance for chaos. They traveled with armed retinues and rarely smiled. Their lead delegate stepped forward, locked eyes with Marcus, and bowed at the waist. "Your aura is acceptable," she said solemnly. "We request your presence at our Ember trial." Marcus blinked. "What's that?" "A rite of emotional resonance." M. "I'm just a guy who pets a fuzzy tank. You calmed the rage of a bound Ralcath with only your presence. We believe you possess the flame calm." Marcus looked at Marmalade, who had just flopped onto her side and begun licking her paw with loud, slobbery dedication. "Sure, flame calm, let's go with that." By the end of the month, 6 different species had declared Marcus an honorary peace figure. 3 wanted to study his brain. 1 offered to mate him with their apex handlers for genetic compatibility enhancement. He declined with a smile and a sudden need to relocate. Alien tourists flooded Keth Raylo. Merchants who once shuttered their stalls now offered apex-themed souvenirs. There was a plush Marmalade with real purring, a line of scratch-friendly gloves, and a drink called the Chin Whisper, served warm and suspiciously foamy. Marcus received a ceremonial sash from the local security guild, a diploma from an alien university, and at least 2 wedding proposals via holo drone. Marmalade received 17 loaves of meat bread, a ceremonial scale brushing, and an official title, the Calmed Claw of Rallo. Her response to this was to eat the paperwork. The tide turned further when another Ralcath escaped during transport, this one in the capital port of Ale Tracen. Panic swept the plaza. Merchants abandoned stalls, guards fled. An entire security barrier collapsed as the beast roared and stomped through a row of shuttle landers. Until someone pointed to the sky and yelled, "Get the human!" They meant any human. But within hours, the panic story shifted because a human dock worker, completely unaware of the danger, had walked up behind the beast and told it to knock off the tantrum with that wise. Integrated D, the beast froze, looked at him, snorted, and lay down. No injuries, no damage beyond the usual broken fence. Footage of the event went viral within the day, and with it came a new round of theories. One alien scholar on a cross-species broadcast put it this way: perhaps humans do not pacify apex creatures through dominance or chemical trickery. Perhaps they speak in something deeper: behavioral signals that trigger childhood calm or companionship patterns we all buried in our evolutionary past. They approach the deadly as if it's merely misunderstood. Another countered, or perhaps humans are too slow-witted to show fear and confuse predators by accident. That scholar was immediately fired. Marcus, for his part, didn't care about the noise. He still scratched Marmalade's ears every morning. He still wandered the market with a lopsided grin and a half-zipped backpack. The only difference was that now, aliens followed him. Some observed. Others asked questions. One tried to pay him to whisper at a particularly temperamental courier bird. "Ma'am," he'd said, "I don't do birds. They got too many opinions." But still, the myth grew. In songs, Marcus became the whisper of the chainless claw. In hollow paintings, Marmalade was often 20 meters taller than she actually was. In one bizarre cartoon series, he wielded a giant comb and brought peace to entire sectors by brushing war beasts into submission. He tried to object, but Marmalade liked the theme song. One night, as the wind turned cool and the lanterns flickered with low twilight hues, Marcus sat alone on the market roof, legs dangling over the edge. Below, Kethralo was calm, peaceful. Marmalade snored in her usual corner. Aln appeared beside him without a sound, arms clasped behind his back. "You've changed this place," Aln said quietly. "I didn't mean to. Intent is rarely the measure of change." They sat in silence for a while. Finally, Marcus asked, "You think this is permanent?" Aln considered it. "The world? No. Reputation? Maybe. But the pattern is bigger than you. You've only revealed what was already buried." "In apex monsters? In all of us," Marcus chuckled. "That's deep for a security officer." Aln nodded. "I've been promoted. Guild Liaison for Interspecies Sentiment. Catchy. You're on the poster." Marcus groaned. "Is it the one with me, riding Marmalade like a hoverbike?" "Yes." Silence returned. Then Aln said, "Would you like a promotion?" Marcus looked out over the flickering lights. "What I'd like," he said, "is a day where I pet a beast, eat my soup, and no one films it." Aln rose. "That day may come," Marcus smiled. "Not today, though." "No," Aln admitted. "Not today." Behind them, Marmalade rolled over and accidentally crushed an entire snack stall. Neither of them looked. The galaxy watched, and waited, and whispered. Something was changing, and at the center of it, a human scratched under the chin of the wild. The Council of Aggressive Species met in a vaulted chamber beneath the crust of Vexi 4. It was a subterranean sanctuary, carved by acid-boring worms, lit by pulsing biocrystals, and heavily warded against eavesdropping. Only those species deemed biologically non-trivial were invited: beasts of talon and toxin, high-speed neural predators, descendants of death worlds. There were no refreshments. Everyone brought their own prey. The chair creature, a shelled colossus from the planet Frang, pounded a claw to begin. "Our threat perception has been compromised," it said, voice like metal teeth grinding slate. "This is unacceptable." A long-bodied delegate with air sacs instead of lungs rippled its skin in agreement. "The apex designation is foundational. We enforce caution through reputation, through fear. The humans are unraveling that." Screens lowered from the ceiling. They showed Marcus Hale, feeding Marmalade an apple, tying a scarf around her neck to keep dust out of her eyes, letting her rest her paw, larger than his torso, across his lap while he read a book. The room hissed with outrage. "Look at him," spat a biped with serrated knees. "He is not even armored. He wears canvas. He eats unsealed food in the open, and the Ralcath purrs. Not a Ralcath, the Ralcath, the one assigned to the Kethralo Guild. Is he bonded? Is this magic? Do they inject something? Use psychic scent?" The Frang chair creature rumbled low. "No, it is worse. He pet it." The word echoed across the chamber like an accusation. "Pet," another whispered. "No tactical training. No reinforced gloves. Endemanics. No combat posture. Just a hand on the chin." A long pause followed. Then the Varnock delegate spoke, voice a soft rasp. "Perhaps the humans are not trying to dominate us. Perhaps they are trying to understand us." Silence. Then laughter. the kind of laughter that came from throats meant for war cries. The chair creature slammed its claw again. We will not be reduced to domesticated myths. The Apex title is not up for revision. We must reassert the order. A single command was etched into the meeting's record. Send the test. Back on Keth Rallo, Marcus was eating noodles. He slurped them from a floating bowl that kept reheating itself every time the wind cooled the broth too much. Marmalade lay beside him, eyes closed, tail slowly sweeping the tiles. The market had grown louder over the past week, more confident in the beast's presence. Children even walked nearby now carefully, but without panic. The human exception tent had turned into a proper pavilion, complete with info kiosks, safety demonstrations, and a marmalade plush pit for younglings. The guild had leaned in hard. There were even chin-scratching workshops. Marcus wasn't running them. He mostly napped and answered questions. Do you speak beast language? Someone asked. Nope. Do you emit calming spores? Not unless I've had beans. Did your species breed with predators? Not on purpose. He grinned. The crowd laughed. Marmalade burped. Then a new figure stepped into the plaza. Not running, not hiding, not filming, just walking. It was tall, slender, covered in flexible gray scales that shimmered like oil. Eyes like black mirrors, claws tucked behind its back. Every merchant within sight froze. Some began backing away. Marcus noticed the hush and turned. The new creature stopped 10 paces away. I seek the human, it said. Marcus wiped his hands on his jacket and stood. That's me. You approach beasts with calm, without challenge, without fear. Marcus gave a small shrug. Usually works. Then approach me. Marmalade lifted her head, ears pricking. The silence deepened. Vendors ducked behind counters. Guild enforcers reached for silent alarms. Someone near the soup stand whispered, "That's a Sarnak trial form. They kill for dominance." Marcus didn't move. He looked at the creature. It looked back. He took one slow step forward. No weapon, no armor, no warning. Just a man in a dusty jacket, approaching the most dangerous thing on the plaza. He stopped within reach. The creature's claws twitched. Marcus extended a hand. Hey! The creature inhaled slowly. Its head tilted. Its eyes blinked once. Then it sat down, cross-legged. Marcus blinked. Huh. The creature extended its own hand. Marcus took it. Shook. Once. Firm. But not aggressive. The crowd exhaled. Aln appeared beside the pavilion, muttering into a comm device. Update the protocol. New clause. Unexpected apex submission trial. Successful. No hostility. Human-to-beast contact reclassified as acceptable in certain high-risk interactions. From behind a stall, a scholar whispered, "That was a Sarnak field executioner. It just folded." "No," replied her companion. "It joined. There's a difference." That night, Marmalade curled protectively around Marcus's tent. Not out of threat, out of choice. The Sarnak stayed nearby, watching the stars, occasionally speaking in low tones to passing vendors. Marcus slept peacefully. And across the sector, new stories emerged. A human engineer sat beside a nesting razorwing and fed it seed by hand. A lost hiker in the Krell ravine was found resting against a coiled thorn lion, using its flank as a heat source. On a high-orbit station, an Apex glider that had panicked in transit curled up around a human sanitation worker who had offered it a granola bar and a head rub. The stories flowed faster than they could be cataloged. At a summit of merchant guilds and security coalitions, the issue reached critical mass. One ambassador slammed a claw into the table. "We must draw the line. Humans cannot keep pacifying apex fauna with unlicensed affection." The human delegate simply smiled. "We're just being friendly." The vote to reclassify human-animal interaction laws failed. Instead, the guilds created a new interstellar department, CHAT, Centralized Human Affection Tracking. Its first database crashed within 3 days. Months later, the plaza at Keth Rallo had changed forever. New murals lined the archways. Lanterns now featured little stitched images of Marcus's silhouette beside Marmalade. The fountain near the south gate had a new name, Peace Through Purring. Marcus rarely went to the council meetings. He liked the plaza better. The food was better. The gossip was endless. The noodle stand gave him extra toppings now, and the scarf vendor asked for grooming tips. One afternoon, Aln approached with a folded parchment. You're invited, he said. To what? The opening of the Guild Apex Cultural Exchange Institute. Marcus sipped his tea. That sounds like work. It's a festival. Oh, in that case maybe. Also, they named a star after you. Marcus squinted. Seriously? It's unofficial, but the maps are already updated. Hale's Calm. Binary system. Uninhabited. He chuckled. Weird. Aln gave him a long look. You still don't understand what you did. I pet a grumpy fuzzball. You reshaped how 12 civilizations think about power. Still just chin scratches. Aln shook his head. It wasn't the scratching. It was that you never once assumed she was evil. Marcus looked across the plaza at Marmalade, who was now being hand-fed fruit by 3 brave schoolchildren. She wasn't, he said, just scared. Most creatures are. Later that evening, Marcus stood under the largest lantern in the square. The plaza buzzed with light and motion. A local band played rhythmic drums mixed with high chimes. Fire dancers spun glowing threads in wide circles. Children laughed. Aliens from 50 systems mingled, and Marmalade, as usual, stole the entire show by snoring loud enough to rattle the dessert carts. Marcus leaned against her side and watched the stars appear overhead. A gentle tap touched his shoulder. He turned to find a small creature fuzzy, quadrupedal, with big eyes and an offering in its paws. A metal token. One side showed a paw, the other, a human hand. It held it out wordlessly. Marcus took it, smiled. Thanks. No speeches were made that night. No ceremonies. Just music, laughter, lanterns, and a peaceful calm so deep it made the air feel warm. Elsewhere in the galaxy, on far-flung worlds and high-orbit stations, creatures continued to look at humans differently, not as threats, not as anomalies, as something harder to define, maybe a bridge, maybe a mirror, maybe something that could walk into the heart of a storm, reach out a hand, and ask, "Aw, who scared you, big guy?" The Ralcath still guarded the market. She still growled at thieves. She still roared if someone raised a weapon in anger. But when she heard footsteps she knew, and a voice she trusted, she purred, and when that